Welcome back to Colin's Arran garden, and I'm really pleased to say that I've had a bit of interest and a few folk around here to see my garden in Polytunnel, and one or two of these folk actually come from farming backgrounds, but they realise what with Brexit and with COVID they've really got to get things growing in their back garden. So I found myself in a strange situation of actually giving advice to someone who comes from a farming background. But the advice I gave, number one, on Arran especially, and maybe in other parts of the UK, do not take soil from somebody who you don't know, because soil can bring you wonderful plants, but it can bring you big problems. And I'm thinking, is it horsetail, mare's tail, Japanese knotweed? And on Arran we have a worm called the New Zealand flatworm, which are affectionately called flatties. And that's decimated large parts of Lamlash. So be very careful where you take your soil from. The other point would be, if you want advice about gardening, of course I can give you a little bit, but there are two sites on YouTube that I really like, and one is a real ascending star called Hugh Richards. That's H-U-W Richards, and he started his own YouTube channel when he was only about 9 or 10, and he is really good. I recommend him. The other one is an Australian guy, makes you laugh, big raised beds, called Self-Sufficient Me. So I recommend Self-Sufficient Me and Hugh Richards. And so there you go. Now let's have a wee wander around. Shall we have a wander around the Polytunnel? I'm not just going to show you my successes, I'm showing my failures. I tell you something that's really quite an interesting plant, and that's elephant garlic. It's actually a member of the leek family, and I have to be honest, the actual cloves can be quite expensive. But once you get a few going, then you get 8 cloves from each one. You can replant it every year. But I have ended up pulling up my elephant garlic far too early. What I didn't realise was that when this projection with the flower head comes up, you can actually pull it off. And by pulling it off, all the nutrient that's all the way up the plant goes back to the bulb of the elephant garlic. It's quite big already, but if I had not pulled it up and pulled that off, I would have had a huge bulb here in about 2 months' time. Interestingly enough, this is called escape. And when you cut the flower head off and cut that into little bits, it's very tasty. You can freeze it, and you can add things like scrambled egg and flavour foods. And the actual elephant garlic at the moment, wonderful roasted, but eventually when you get these 8 big cloves, it's spectacular wrapped in tin foil and roasted with other vegetables. So that's your elephant garlic. Another failure on my part, I don't know why these tomato plants have died. I got them at B&Q. 2 of them died there and 2 of them have died here. I know it's not because of giving them the wrong nutrient, and I know it's not because of not giving them enough water, and I suspect it's just a viral illness, but I don't know. However, around it you will see I have basil growing quite nicely, and all of this basil I got from one plant at the co-op. And basically you take the co-op plant and you see the stems here, you take the stems off, put them in water, they form roots, and you bring them out here and stick them all in different places. And traditionally what you're supposed to do is grow basil around your tomato plants, because apparently from Italy there's a wonderful sauce, tomato and basil. Over here I've got some aubergines. To be honest, I haven't quite got the hang of how to look after them properly. I think once they get a bit higher I take the tips out and it forms a bush. And at the back here I'm rather proud of this. This is fennel, and it normally grows in quite hot climates. If you try and grow it outside it bolts, but this is looking quite nice. And fennel seeds, a spectacular aniseedy smell, wonderful. And then down the bottom here, who can tell me what this is? Your starter for 10. What is it? Well, I'll give you a clue. It normally grows around the coast in the south of England. It's samphire. And I planted 50 seeds. I've got 2. There you are. But I think now I know how it will grow next year, so I'll devote a whole bed to it. My partner Jill says having this is a bit like having asparagus. So have a go at that. And these are sweet potatoes. I've actually had to buy what are called the slips. Sweet potatoes, you can't bury a sweet potato. You have to stimulate growth at the top and then take off the slips and plant them. And it's quite difficult to do yourself, so I bought these in from Sutton's. It doesn't look much now, but they're like huge vines everywhere, and you can get some lovely potatoes. And as you can see above me, I've got lots of vines, and I've cut back some of the vines because some of the branches were getting too long, and I think you want energy in the actual grapes. Yeah, you can see the grapes here. Yeah, and then over here I have a couple of, I think it's arguably the best tomatoes you can get. They're called Sun Gold F1. They're like little sweeties, powerful little sweeties. And then around here I've got onions in here, and around the edges I have Firestorm runner beans, which will be ready fairly soon. Here we've got sweet corn at different stages of development, but I think I'll be getting sweet corn in about 6-7 weeks.